And we're back at it again with another live one for all you Biconics wrestling fanatics out there on the YouTube lands. And welcome. We keep changing the show every single week because it keeps growing. So, welcome back to another episode of Table for Two plus You, Electric Boogaloo Part 2. If it's a mouthful, but we loved it. But we are back with another episode to review this week's Impact Wrestling for September 21st, 2023. As always, I'm joined by my table for two co hosts, normally Will. So, Will, happy to have you back for another one. But joining the table for two family as our third position on this amazing review show is Andrew. Andrew, my friend, I'm so excited to finally have you here for Impact.
I'm excited to be here. It's been a lot of fun watching Impact, so I'm excited to talk about it.
So, I won't make you do an introduction of yourself because you've done that twice already this week. So make sure to check out the wrestling podcast episode and the Ring of Honor review if you want to get more intimate details of Andrew. But just to let the audience know, between myself, him, and Will, this is going to be a good show. Don't tell the other hosts that I think this is the greatest show ever. But as I mentioned, we are here to review another amazing episode of Impact Wrestling, and this week was the second part of the 1000th episode celebration. Now, I don't. Me and Will discussed this last week in our review, but we both kind of felt that we were hyped when they announced everything for part one, and then after the end of it, we're like, "Huh." I was kind of underwhelmed by a lot of this. There was a lot of long promo segments the first half, and there was a lot of questions. So we once we got the announcement of what was coming this week, we hope please let it be better. And I think for the most part, I think we kind of got that. So I mean, we'll just jump right into it. So this week's Impact, the second part of the 1000th episode celebration, we literally kick it into high gear because we open up with an Ultimate X match. God, it is still one of my favorite match types. So, for those who don't know, the Ultimate X is kind of for their X Division Championship or their Cruiserweight Division, if you really want to call it, in all honesty, where there is a ginormous red X hanging about 7 to 8 feet high above the ring, attached to some scaffolding and four red ropes. And the object is to climb up the scaffolding, shimmy across the ropes, and grab the X and land on the mat. And that will give you a future X Division Championship match. And boy, howdy, did they pick the right people to be in this match. So, we have Zachary Wentz, one half of the Rascals, Rich Swan, Alan Angels, Samurai Del Sol, Speedball Mike Bailey, and Tom Cruise's cousin, as I like to refer to him, because the hair and the face. And then, of course, the ace himself, Ace Austin. This match ruled. But, so, Andrew, we'll start with you since you're new. So, we're going to put you in the hot seat. What did you think of this match?
Um, I wasn't sure what to expect, especially with it starting off. I I was very surprised by who won because I wasn't expecting him to win. But then again, when I started to think about it, I don't know who I was expecting to win out of this. You had two guys who were one half of tag teams. Um, and then you had some other people who were kind of not necessarily doing big pushes or anything like that. So I was surprised. There were some fun moments. Um, I thought it was a really fun match. I did feel like there were some times that it was kind of missing something that previous Ultimate X's had. I did find it interesting that this was the 50th Ultimate X match for Impact. One of the moments that really stood out to me, though, was that triple moonsault that was hit off of the scaffolding. And I think it was Samurai Del Sol, Alan Angels, and was it
I think it was
Mike
Speedball.
Bailey?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Speedball.
yeah. That was super impressive. That was really clean. I never felt like either any of the performers were in danger. performing the spot. So I think there were some fun times in there. And ultimately, with Alan Angels coming out with the victory, um, super surprised. Really enjoyed him as part of the Dark Order. So I'm happy to see him doing more stuff. Um, they announced right after the match that he'll be challenging right away for the X Division title against the newly crowned Chris Sabin. I don't know that I really liked that because I kind of feel like it's kind of a given that he's probably not going to win that one. I feel like it was too quick of a turnaround, and I would really have liked to have seen if he was going to win it, him do more with it because he's a really solid performer in the ring, and I feel like he could play a really dark foil to Chris Sabin. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But all in all, thought it was a solid, fun match. Good way to open up, especially with the 1,000th episode, to kind of nod to the history of Impact and that division.
Totally agree. Well, so we have a little bit more intimate, knowledge. I mean, we've seen Alan Angels for the last couple of weeks over, and we both agreed that we like seeing him wrestle. And again, I'm still amazed that he wrestles with the earring. I'm like, bro, are we not worried that it's about to get ripped out at some point? But what was your overall thought on this Ultimate X match that opened up the show?
Well, I thought it was okay. I mean, I think it's, and forgive me, all you wrestling people out there, but I think it felt a little redundant because I mean, the briefcase one was identical to it. I'm just like, can we not, make some different choices? I don't know. It was just, I just felt like, oh, here we are again, and then, but I enjoyed it. But I was just like, I figured Angel was gonna win. I did. I was like, maybe I was a little hopeful. I don't know. But overall, I thought the match was okay. It wasn't really. I don't think it was the strongest thing that could have started the episode, but Impact. We've been here before with Impact. Impact. I don't think those people know how to program their stuff because it's like a hit and miss with them sometimes. Sometimes it's like, oh my god, that was the most amazing match ever, and then you think, why did they put it there? Why didn't they put it like in another place? And I don't know. It just this, I didn't feel like, and but I will agree that this episode was way better than the first half of it, like leaps and bounds. This one was more exciting. The last one, albeit wasn't horrible, it just was a little boring, I think. And My phone just randomly started playing music. That was weird. But it felt a little showy to me, I guess. I think it felt more like, all right, you guys go out there and do some stuff, and that's how we'll open the show. And I didn't feel that it was very challenging. I didn't feel like when we did this, I thought the briefcase match was way more challenging than this one. And I kind of was like, well, why this one should have been in the first half, and the briefcase should have been in the second half, because this one to me was just sort of like, I was like, okay, okay, it was all right. I didn't take any notes on it because I was just sort of like, okay. There were some beautiful moves. I thought, don't get me wrong. Again, for all the listeners out there, I thought all the wrestlers did great. It just didn't feel starter material to me. I don't know. This should have been somewhere in the middle area. I think because trust me, there were far better matches coming
Oh,
that
definitely.
could have opened this episode. But yeah, that was it. I mean, overall episode, I really enjoyed this episode far more than I enjoyed the first one. So, and I know that there are tons more better matches in the second half than there were in the first half. So, but this first one felt kind of, mm, dare I say, wimpy to open this episode with. I mean, truly, it didn't feel very. I don't feel that the episode started off very strongly. I guess, and I was that,
No.
and so I got a little worried when I was watching this one because I was like, after being
Yep. I
burned by the
remember the
first half,
message.
I was like, oh god, I was like, here we go again. It's gonna be like warmed over hash, Just the same crap on a different day. And so, but it got better as we went on. This first one was kind of, and I mean, I figured Angel was going to win it. I just, for some reason in my bones, I was like, he's going to get this.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. The best way I can put it, I enjoyed it. I mean, the triple moonsault off the
Yeah.
pillar was awesome.
Yes.
It was great, and the fact that they all timed it pretty much in sync with each other is like a feat in itself. But the best way for me to describe this is I felt like kind of like a paint by numbers. And then I
Yeah.
think what also didn't help it too is that commentary, even, when Ace Austin was making his entrance, they talked about the last time that he was a part of something like this, and it was for the tag team championships where him and Chris Bay took the titles off of Motor City Machine Guns. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that was a match. That match ruled. And then I was like, by the end of this, I was like, oh, I was like, did that they shouldn't have said that because I was like, okay, I would have been like, all right, this is pretty good. Like it's not bad. And then I remembered the actual great one that Ace Austin was saying. I was like, oh yeah, never mind. This was not as good as that one. I was like,
I think this episode actually, or not episode, this match actually got better once they brought the spray paint out.
oh, when
I mean,
Zachary
truly. I mean, it
sprayed
really
the
did.
yep, and just I'm like, oh, he dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, thank God somebody finally pulled something out. Because I was like, someone needs to grab a chair, someone needs to grab something, because this match was getting really, really stale. Because it almost felt like the same moves over and over and over and over and over again.
I found a lot of the
And
chemistry was off between people, which is
yeah, it
really
was.
weird.
I agree. Because I really, sometimes I just think it's like, okay, guys, here's the picture. This is what you're going to do. There's going to be a big X. Go. Do whatever. And it's like no instruction or. And so they did, wrestlers are going to be wrestlers. They're going to go out there and they're going to do what they do. And it just didn't feel like it had any structure, didn't have any true purpose other than the big X and hanging in the middle. I don't feel that it really pushed anything forward story wise,
Mm-hmm.
truly. And I was just sort of like, why is this here? Why? I mean, could you just not just handed it to him and then said, okay, we're moving on to we got a better match coming up?
There was a big lull at one point when there were four of them all climbing towards the middle, and it felt slow. There was no worry or tension or anticipation as to oh, who's going to get it? How are they going to get there? Who's going to come out on top? Who's going to stop them?
Yeah.
And that's not, especially when you're comparing it to previous Ultimate X matches where you can think of all the huge spots that have come off of that.
Yeah.
It just didn't have any of that. And there was nothing super original outside of that triple moonsault. And so I don't think there was any of that tension there. And that's, I think, something that kind of worries me about the fact that Alan Angels is just going to turn around and challenge for the title right away. Because it feels like it's going to build to that and then nothing's going to happen. And then we're going to move on to some other story.
That made me upset. That made me upset.
Yeah,
I was happy that Alan won, but I was like, really? We're cashing? I was like, you couldn't have waited till Bound for Glory to cash it in?
Yes.
See, that's what I don't understand. That's why I was like, okay, first of all, to me, it felt like, I personally, the way it felt like, is like, oh, this match is not doing what we thought it was going to do. So, hey, when you get this, immediately challenge Chris Sabin. It's like, because that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh, crap, nobody likes our match. Okay, here, I'm going to do this thing. And then everyone's just sort of like, what the hell? Just what? Yeah, I didn't get that at all. I was like, I was like, why are you wasting that right now? I would hang on to that bad boy for a while until, a moment of truly where it's going to be badassery in the building. But, this is the thing about Impact that bothered, and we've talked about this before, Mikey, is their whole, they don't know what to focus on. Not just in programming, but even cameras and and also they are not good about sideline stuff. because there are things that could be going on down below that would make this match a lot more exciting for the viewers anyway. Maybe if you're there at the event, maybe it's like, oh my god, look at all this amazing stuff that's happening. But when we're watching it on, whatever we're watching it on, I mean, it was so hyper focused on the ring and up and down those poles that you could see in the background that there were other things happening like down on the floor. And I was like, what's happening back there? I want to know what's going on. I don't care about them climbing a pole. What's going on over there? Because whoever that is, they're getting the shit beat out of them. That's what I was like. Why do they do this? Stop. Oh my God. Fire whoever came up with that. Hire somebody else because I don't care. And I agree with you, Andrew. It almost died for a second. It's like in theater when you talk about like a 3 second pause on stage feels like 3 hours. That's what it felt like. And I was just sort of like, okay. And then when they were all crawling out to it, I was like, there was no suspension. There was no like, it's like, okay, someone's going to get to it.
There was no sense of urgency, which I feel like Feaster fired last week with the briefcases. There was so much more urgency between everybody fighting for a briefcase.
Yeah,
and this one was like a stroll in the park. I was like, you guys, this is Ultimate
and it
X.
was, yeah. And it was sort of like, they only had so many people in the ring at a time. I'm like, if that X was on the line, I'm going in there for it. I would think everybody else would too. I would be like, hey, let's create a temporary sort of truce with each other so we can take this dude out. And then once we get him down, I'm going to knock you out underneath the knees and I'm going to head for it. But it was none of that. It was literally like, these three people came in and did something, got knocked out. These three people came in, did something, got knocked out. These two went up the pole. Then another person came in. It was like, can we not do a free for all? That's what I want. I want a free for all. It's like no rules, no anything. Just an extreme match. That's what it's. Hello, extreme X. Yeah. It didn't feel extreme at all. It was literally like, I have a lunch appointment in 3 minutes. Can we get this? Can we go ahead and kind of hurry this along? That's what it felt like. I mean, even like in the announcements and stuff, it just felt so like
commentary was having a difficult time trying to do play by play here. I was like, this was tough. Yeah. And I mean, the sentiment is normally I'd love Ultimate X's. This wasn't inherently wrong because I have seen some worse ones, but it didn't excite me. And I was like, I kind of agree with you, Will, now that I think about it. I feel like they should have swapped Ultimate X for Feaster Fired on this one. I think that would be a fun way to open the show.
They should have opened it with Feaster Fire. Because it was a continuation, and that would have like led the see, this is what I'm talking about. Impact is horrible at stories. They're great at putting some matches together and great this, that, and the other, but they are horrible at story. It's like you end on a cliffhanger, you come back to that cliffhanger. You don't, and the funny thing is you don't have to open all the cases at once.
They should have spread it out.
Yes, and then it's just like, but they didn't. They brought this in, and I felt like it was just sort of thrown together. There wasn't a lot of planning in it. They're like, hey, we're going to do this Ultimate X. You, go out there and do something. Yeah, oh, you got 5 minutes. Go. It's literally, that's what it felt like, and because it felt held back. It's like the wrestlers were holding back because they felt unsure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you could see the funny thing about it is you could see the wrestlers who were very familiar with each other because their moves made sense. They didn't hold back. But the ones who are like, oh, I'm not really familiar with you, so I'm going to do something very soft to you, like maybe roll you out of the ring or something. I don't know. But it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. I mean, all the individual wrestlers I really enjoyed, but the match as a whole it was like bland toast to me anyway. I'll shh now.
I mean, I agree with the two of you. I think this was, again, nothing inherently wrong. I was happy that Alan Angels won. And then I got sad because, as Andrew pointed out, literally we get backstage and Alan's like, "I'm gonna cash it in on Chris next week." I'm like, "Oh, so oh man!" I was like, "He's not gonna win now."
You know,
I'm like,
you've got no
oh,
chance, dude.
And
You've got no chance.
because I mean, it's same idea as Money in the Bank, right? You can cash it in whenever.
uh huh,
So, like, they could have, if you're going to do it next week, wait till something happens next week to get a surprise. If you don't promote it for Bound for Glory, you have Saban get set up, maybe an attack. Well, now we know that Shelley's going to already be at Bound for Glory, but maybe Saban's in something else for Bound for Glory, or he gets set up for another X Division title defense, wins it, then Angels comes out and says, like, nope, I'm cashing it in right now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going for it. Like, set something up, build to
See
that.
this? Yeah, I agree. This would be a great one. I love when we talk about conspiracy theories and theories in general. But yeah, he needs to be like Saban needs to like win something, and then that very night, Angel needs to go right now. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so he
And
has no
you,
time to
yeah.
rest, no time to anything, and just jump on it. That's what that to me is like a great story. It's like, oh my god, yes,
I think what doesn't help this either is because we had an X Ultimate X match winner in Kushida who did the same thing. Now, granted, Kushida is more of a face, and Alan is kind of leaning towards more the heel a little bit. But Kushida held on to that. It's like, I'm cashing this in, at this set time. We're gonna do this. I was just like, yeah, because Kushida's like, I'm cashing this in at Victory Road, so you better be ready.
Well, and they already had Saban set up in the background to go against Kushida. So it was pretty much a guarantee that Kushida wasn't going to win it. So now it's almost just like you're defeating the purpose of the Ultimate X victory. Because if you're going to do that, just have them face him next for the title. Don't set up
yeah,
this big thing.
this is dumb.
Um, and it's interesting that you mentioned, you talked about the differences between the shows as a whole from night one to night two. But those similarities between Feast or Famine, and Ultimate X, uh, like even though one was on the night that was less strong than the other one, if you compare those two matches, yeah, the night one version of the match was way better, way like much higher energy, much more entertaining. If we would have opened this episode with an Ultimate X that had that same kind of energy to it, I think we would have been in a much better place. But
Yeah,
it was what started, and it went uphill from there. So
it
I
did.
guess that's
It
better.
did go up. Yep, it did go up. So, okay. So, we already talked about the segment with Alan Angels cashing in next week. And then we get kind of a throwback match in the sense that they put like the on screen timer, like from the first episode of TNA, where they actually had the time limit. But we had Dirty Dango, which, okay, we're going to talk about him in a little bit because I really don't like this character he's going with. I hate it. It was fun when he went back to being like Santino's like PI assistant. Like a couple months back, I was like, oh, this is like the fashion files from SmackDown when he was at WWE. And I was super excited. I hate this character, but Dirty Dago taking on one of my favorites right now. I'm so glad he returned to Impact. Jake something, man, toned up. I was just like, geez, Louise. AEW Dark and the New Japan circuit did wonders for that boy. But Dirty Dago versus Jake something. Obviously, we had Johnny Bravo,
Alpha
coming
Bravo.
Alpha Bravo now. Sorry. God,
Uh,
the whole Swingers Palace saga is such a blur. But anyways, Dirty Dago versus Jake something. As soon as I saw this advertised, I'm like, oh, Jake's whooping his ass, and that's essentially what happened.
yep.
As it should.
Yeah, it's funny because the last couple of times I saw Jake something, I was trying to figure out who he reminded me of, and he reminds me of old WWF Hercules.
Oh
Uh,
my
uh,
god.
Like I saw him and I was like, oh, he's like the new age Hercules. And every time I've seen him, I've enjoyed his matches more and more. I'm happy he won. I was kind of concerned that maybe Bravo might get involved and get Dango a cheap victory. So I was happy that happened. But yeah, I mean, the guy's a beast, and I hope he's moving into something that's going to be able to really like highlight what he can do because it, he's an animal.
Listen, Andrew, we have a confession to make. So, so um, you can both hear this on our NXT reviews and normally the Impact reviews. You normally, because it's been me and Will for a little bit. What happens when you put a bisexual and a gay man together? You don't know what you're gonna get. Listen, I will be the first to admit you're resident bisexual. This is the hotness corner for a hot second. Jake something. Hi, how we doing?
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
back to the actual stuff. I agree with you, Andrew. I kind of was a little bit worried that Jake was gonna lose here, and not because he's my man's, but again, I would. I was afraid in the sense that because Jake's momentum has been pretty good since his return to Slammiversary, and then we talked about this at the Emergence. That was my match of the night. His match against Sonata at Emergence was fucking phenomenal. And just the fact we got to watch it, I was afraid that his momentum was going to get cut short. I'm like, please don't pull a WWE where he's hot and then you just cut the rug from underneath him.
yeah.
But again, I'm glad that the majority of this match, even with, some interference from Bravo, Jake literally whooped Dango's ass all up and down the ring.
I do
And
love when Bravo smacked Dango with that flashlight.
yeah, he didn't even hit Jake. He hit
That
Dango.
was great. That was such a great moment. I was like, no, see that? Yeah, there you go. That was great. Oh
Again,
yeah, this was a good match.
Will, what? Yeah, what did you think of Dirty Dango versus Jake?
Well, you know me and and you know how I am when people talk, and of course, that's what happens at the very beginning. And I'm just like, oh Jesus Christ, can you just fight, please? I know. Oh no, let me do. I'm like, oh dear Lord. It's like, okay, how long is this going to go on for? And and so, but once we got into the match, it was I was I mean I was not concerned that Jake was going to lose this match because I was like, no, I don't think. And the reason being is I don't think this would have been the opponent to act that they would want to defeat him. This I don't think just for feeling like the vibe. I was like, no, this is a building match. This like look at Jake, he's taking out another person. Oh, look at this Jake, he's taking out another person. We haven't gotten to the one that's going to defeat him yet, and so I wasn't so concerned about that. But I did like this match. Like I said, it got better after the first one, and I do not like Dango's character like at all. Like I'm really kind of like I really don't know what he wants to be. It's like he doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. Um, but I did like a lot of they had some great moves against each other though. I thought, even though I figured Jake was going to win this, the two of them did fight well. I felt anyway. Um, a lot of turnbuckle use, tons of clotheslines happening in it. Jake was clotheslining him right there towards the end like crazy. And then, of course, the flashlight thing happened, which just made me laugh out loud. And, and then, of course, he did the end of the void to win. But I was just like, and of course, Jake is just beautiful to watch in general. He is. He's a handsome man. He's
No.
and he's
Like I said, he definitely toned up from the last time he was
Yeah,
in Impact.
right, right. I
dude's
remember you
built like a
telling me that from the
mountain.
beginning. Yeah,
Yes.
he's like, and I don't, and it's like I say he's gorgeous to look at, but he just to me just sort of like epitomizes wrestler to me. Like he just exudes it, and that is extremely attractive. And so yeah, I was going into this thinking, oh yeah, he's got this. There's no way he's gonna lose to this douchebag. No way.
See, I love that you have that perspective, Will, because again, so it's not necessarily a secret because we've talked about it before on NXT, but for you, you're just coming back to wrestling, and so you still are just like, you know what, I can see this. Me and Andrew have unfortunately been trained by WWE that when somebody has momentum, they're usually going to have some sort of schmoz character to cut the momentum out from under them. And I'm like, don't do this to me. And it's taken me years to untrain my brain, but there's small little moments that still stick around. I'm like, no, what are we doing? Don't do this to me.
I am interested to see where they go with him.
Hmm.
Does he continue on just singles with no division necessarily in mind, to eventually, just have some good rivalries, or is he going to get to build to going after a title of some sort? And if he did, kind of where does he go? Obviously, he's got he looks like a life size action figure, and he moves really well, especially for a big guy. Um, so he's got the look of someone you would expect to go for that world title. But I could easily see him also kind of going after that like digital media title. I know he's got a big Dragon Ball Z tattoo on his leg that's usually covered up by
Yep.
his ear. So he could definitely like kind of play into that world. It'd be interesting to see if they take him into more of a darker side and play into his size advantage over folks, or if he just goes more towards the face side. But it'll be interesting to see where they go because he has looked so solid in the last few weeks when I've been able to watch him. So I'm excited.
Definitely. And again, last thing I'll say is that I love this version of Jake because before he used to be a part of, the faction with Diener and all them. He was this silly character. And now once he found his edge, and then when he left and came back, I do like this more vicious side. My ultimate dream match at some point would be him versus Josh, just because I think they kill each other. And again, I I may or may not yell at my screen if that happens.
I don't know if I would survive that match.
Honestly, I don't think I would, just because the wrestling would be amazing, but that's a lot of hard hits going against each other. And we'll
It's a
talk
lot.
about Josh a little bit later because
It's a lot of
holy
beef in the
crap.
ring. It's a lot of beef
If
in the ring.
yes, Josh is not a small man, but the fact is that Josh also he showed me again tonight. He showed everyone it's like he can work with any style of wrestler. He's just that awesome.
He's so
So
good.
exactly, I can't wait to talk about that. So Jake wins. We get a backstage segment. Poor Steve Macklin. He's getting gored left and right. He got gored last week to lose the briefcase. And then this one looked like it hurt. Rhino comes out of frame as Macklin's cutting this promo backstage and literally throws him through some storage boxes they have backstage.
Can, okay, can I? Okay, I'm going to interject here for a second because
Please do.
this is the style. This is the style of old school wrestling that I love. In the middle of a promo backstage, next thing you know, you're in a body bag. I mean, it's literally like, oh hey, I'm this that of course Macklin whining because I can't stand that guy, and then Rhino comes out of nowhere and just gut punches him and throws him through all the boxes and stuff. And I was like yelling at my screen. I was like, yeah, get him. I was like, God, yeah. And man, he just impaled him. And I was like, that made my old school heart very happy. And
I
it was not because it was Macklin that got it, but the whole style of that was very much like, yes.
Yeah, with that promo with the green lights on the road cases, that kind of giving that different look. And it was funny because right before the gore happened, I remember thinking of like how well they did to change the environment by just putting those road cases together behind him, throwing on some green light, giving him a different feel. And then when the gore happened, I was like, oh, and that's why they set that up, just for
Yep.
that extra bit.
Just
Just
that little bit.
yeah. Um, I would like to see. I mean, obviously they're going to do something with him and Rhino, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously Rhino's not going to be doing stuff long term. He's just kind of coming back for moments here and there. I wonder if they're going to be kind of putting Macklin on hold with the Rhino thing, while Josh goes after the world title, and then maybe setting that back up for the two of them to go at each other. But with what they kind of set up with Macklin's return, it'd be interesting to see if they're going to do try to make him more of a bigger heel. You know,
Right. And, because Lord have mercy and God bless both of those men, but Impact really had a hard time because, of course, earlier in the year, towards March, April, because Josh was champion, eventually we were going to get Josh versus Steve for that title. And I still firmly believe that Steve would have taken it off of Josh. But unfortunately, before that title defense could happen, Josh got hurt. And then, they had to change the match at, what was it? Not Under Siege, the one before that. So I think at, oh my goodness, what's Rebellion. So the match at Rebellion turned into that 6-man tag instead of that championship match, and then Steve ended up winning it. And then he had a fun run. His match at Under Siege with PCO is still one of my favorite things that I have watched this year, and PCO is great. But he was not on either one of these two shows, and it kind of hurt me. But you know what? That's it. And then unfortunately, Steve got hurt. Poor Steve Macklin, man. I'm happy that Alex Shelley is having his first title, major, main title run. I honestly thought that Nick Aldis would be the one to take it when he was there the last couple months, but he was only there short term. Um, Again, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens with Rhino and Macklin. And I love Rhino just dropping the F bomb and they had to bleep it out, which was hilarious to me. I love it when they have to bleep out the curse words. And it's not like the couple seconds of mute and then we come back to speech. It's the literal old school, like beep.
yeah,
It's one of my favorite things. So, okay. So we get a match that's next, but this one was kind of all over the place because we literally had it changed like 3 times with not even like a progression. It changed 3 times in the span of like 2 minutes.
not
So we
even
start
that.
like 30 seconds maybe because everything kind of got out of control. And I have a conspiracy theories. I feel like they changed this last minute to be what it ended up being. So it was originally supposed to be Kenny King versus Eric Young. So I was like, okay, cool. And then we didn't even get that last long because then, with interference from Kenny King's like protege, Shelton Jean, then it turns into a tag team match between Kenny and Shelton versus Team Canada, which is Eric Young and Scott D'Amore. And then not even 5 seconds into this match, Eric like Diener comes out, and then it turns into a 8-man tag with Kenny, Shelton Jean, and the design of which is uh Diener and Khan taking on Team Canada and America's Most Wanted. And I'm like, poor Bobbert Roode. I was just like, you're still in WWE. Beer money would have been money here. But that's me. But again, James Storm, love the man to death. I was like, phenomenal wrestler. The result was what I expected once I saw America's Most Wanted come out. I'm like, oh yeah, there's no way that we're the good guys are losing here. This was just a mess of a match. And again, I will say this time and time again because me and Will always talk about this. Kenny King, the last 2-3 months, cannot catch a break.
They got to give that. You got to give that man a break at some point. And I really kind of thought this was going to be it because I was like, oh look, they're finally putting him up against someone, that matches, his sort of his intensity and his skill. And I was like, yes. And and this match to me felt stupid. I mean, again, nothing against the wrestlers themselves, but this just felt convoluted. I was just like, and then I am done. I'm here. I'm up. I'm like about here with Shark Boy. He needs to go away. I'm done with all that. It was semi funny to annoying in the first half, and now it's just dumb. And And I was really upset with this match because I literally was wanting Kenny King to get his shot because he's been knocked down and knocked down and knocked down or put up against people that we were like, there's no way that he's going to win this match because there's no, like with Dreamer, there was no way that they were going to let him
We
beat.
talked about that in our Victory Road review. We were just like,
There was no way.
there was no reason for Tommy. I hated the fact that it was title versus career. I'm like, there's no. They literally telegraphed it. I'm like, there's no way Tommy Dreamer's retiring. I thought that would have been the best moment. Like if you did,
Yes.
that would have been that would have been a worthy moment for Impact. But like Tommy
Yeah.
Dreamer does not need the title, and I'm still
No.
wanting Heath to take it off him. So Kenny
Yeah.
versus Heath would be very interesting for
Would
me.
be super cool. But yeah, this match was, it just felt so staged, dare I say. But I think you're right. And I'm going to go with you on this, Mikey, on the conspiracy side of this. I think this totally felt last minute. Like, truly. Like, okay, we're going to change up things, everybody. Listen to what we're going to do. It's going to be so cool. And it's like, no, it's really not.
This
No.
this this felt very raw-ish. This felt like something you would see in a WWE show when they're highlighting the days of yore. And it was, how do we bring in America's Most Wanted? How do we feature these things? They included Shark Boy, America's Most Wanted, Team Canada, like all these kind of things, and threw that in there. There were three things that kind of I enjoyed a bit, and one was Eric Young coming down in his Sanity design
Yes.
esque gear because he's been coming out in a little more lighter gear with the hocky mask and everything lately. I
Just
like
be
that.
Casey Jones. Please be Casey
Yeah,
Jones.
I did like America's Most Wanted looked much better in the ring than I expected them to look. They did well for not being around as much. Um, and I will give credit to Scott Demore on that sky high finish. That was super clean. It was probably one of the biggest highlight spots of that match. But yeah, I feel like this was a WWE esque. We've got a bunch of people. We don't know what to do with them. Let's throw them all in a match together. And it didn't really serve anybody, which, like you've all said, Kenny King being the one that's, kind of the younger, person that's going to be going on and wrestling at the top for Impact, uh, just got no service out of it. And so I think he was the one that was probably hurt the most by this.
Listen, we talked about this the last couple of paper reviews, but so initially Kenny King took this title off of Hendry, and I was here for it. And we had a rematch, which was a lot of fun. But then since then, and since Joe Hendry moved on, both him and Kenny King moved on from that feud, which was short lived. Kenny hasn't caught a break. Like since he won that digital media championship, his first real title defense was against Johnny Swinger at Emergence, and I'm like, that is the wrong person. And then to go against Tommy Dreamer, I'm like, again, that was the wrong person. And then what put the nail in the coffin for me? I was like, oh, Tommy won. I was like, why? I
Because they
don't
were not going to embarrass an old man. I say old. We know he's not old, but he acts like he's like 70
his
years
body
old.
will say otherwise.
Yeah,
Tommy Dreamer
and
has done everything,
horrible things to
anything.
himself.
Yes.
And it's like we knew that wasn't going to happen, especially with all of the backstage boohooery that he was doing. There's no
Hated those
way they were going to
promos.
do that to him on the thing. And literally, I was like, Kevin, you got no chance in this match. Absolutely no chance. First of all, not to harp on old stuff, but I mean, he literally held that match together. I mean, Dreamer was moving around that ring like he was in a wheelchair, and I'm just like, and he just kept. God bless him. I mean, like him or not, that was kind of crappy. I mean, seriously, that was kind of crappy. And then this
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah. It was, and I think, I mean, obviously, people, especially in sports and entertainment and things like that, want to hold on to it as long as they can. And I think if they had built it up right, if they were willing, and especially if Tommy Dreamer was willing to really like, put up the boots, I think they could have had King win that match, keep his title, and had Dreamer go out, in as classy of a way as possible, and put that heat on King to be the person that was like, you ended Tommy Dreamer's career. Obviously, we all know it's going to be like a thing that they've agreed upon and they've worked to and all that stuff. But in that story, like you put that heat on them, and then that gives you so many possibilities going forward for people wanting to come after him for that kind of thing. All the people who looked up to Tommy Dreamer idolized him for what he had done in the past and all that kind of stuff. But instead, now you have it on a guy who you're like, what's he even going to do in defending this title? It seems so out of place for him to have a title like that. And it's really weird choices, but I hope once we get past these anniversary shows and we move on to the next stages, that some of these folks are going to be getting some good pushes and some good momentum.
You
I
know,
hope so.
Andrew, you brought up a good point, and I was sitting here thinking about it. And that is, you're right. This did feel like literally, it's like, oh, we brought in all of these old school wrestlers to do this amazing thing for the thousandth the thousandth episode, and suddenly it's like, oh crap, we forgot to use them all. You're right. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt like we got to get as many of these folks into this match as we possibly can, so that we can say, look, we used them all. And you're right. It literally feels like they shoved all of these veterans and old schoolers kind of into this match and created this whatever it was. And to me, this match did not work. I truly did not. I enjoyed like the end of it. Like again, the wrestlers were great, but the match itself was just, to me, just didn't work. Just did not work. It felt forced.
Yeah. And I mean, again, Team Canada and America's Most Wanted win. They celebrate afterwards. Sure. Okay. And I will talk about a conspiracy theories because I had to go back when they started initially announcing everything that we were getting for the thousandth episode, and then I was surprised to see there was one match that got announced that we never got these last 2 weeks. And I'll wait until we get into Josh and Trey's match because that was not supposed to be the original plan. And we did get an announcement of what was, but we'll talk about it when we get there. So I would like to take a moment. We need to prepare the eulogy for about what we're about to experience. Let's take a moment of silence. I need a moment. So we get the feast or fired results, and we just do it all at once.
I do want to say I wrote down my predictions before they announced them so I could
Uh-huh.
see how close I was. I got one out of the four right. Um,
Me too.
I
I only
thought it
got one.
I thought it was going to be Moose getting the world title shot. I thought it was going to be. I thought they might put Bay up for the digital media one,
Uh-huh.
um, partially because I was really hoping that Joya was going to get the tag team title
Yes,
shot.
me too. Me too. Me and
I
Will
was so
discussed this.
hoping.
We wanted them to get the tag team title
Yeah.
briefcase, but
And then I thought Crazy Steve would get the pink slip because I felt like they could have given him the pink slip, delved really into this like deep end that he's going off on, like getting fired would just send him just like any little last bit of anything he has left sanity wise. Um, and then you just have him showing up as a not an employee anymore, attacking people, like
with this fork.
appearing throughout the
In the parking
building,
lot.
like yeah, just being this this like horror kind of figure, and then, maybe to appease him in the future of saying like, all right, you want to get back so bad, we'll give you a chance to win your contract back. And you put him in some big match, some big
Yeah,
crazy
that
match.
would have been cool.
But,
Yeah, he
unfortunately,
becomes like the like the Phantom of the Opera. He's
Yeah,
like sort of
Yes.
there. You
yeah.
hear his voice every once in a while. And it's like, oh god, oh god.
And you could build him into a frightening character,
You
but
could.
unfortunately, like I said, I got one right, and the one that I was the most sad about hurt more than I thought it would hurt.
Oh, it
Okay,
hurt
so
a lot.
let's prepare ourselves because I had to pause and mourn what was about to happen after we got the results. So I mean, everybody could watch because we did make some. Me and Will made some predictions of who we thought was going to get what. Obviously, none of it. We were never correct. No, we
Yeah,
got nothing right. But so you know, Busted Open Radio decided to do this. And I'm like, that's the other thing I hate. I love that Tommy Dreamer is helping backstage, and I love that the folks at Busted Open Radio podcast, like them and Impact, have a good relation. But I'm like, I'm tired of being on Busted Open Island, as I like to call it, between Tommy and Bully Ray, and you know, that's for another day. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wanted just for the shits and giggles. I kind of wanted Crazy Steve to get the world title opportunity. Well, especially since like the last 4 weeks, we had like this really heartfelt promo, like a 3-part interview series where we dive deep into Crazy Steve's actual personal life. I was like, oh, this got dark really quick. I'm like, oh, now I'm even behind Crazy Steve. Oh, now he's stabbing people out here with the forks. Okay, I was like, let the person stabbing people with forks get a world title shot. But Crazy Steve gets a chance at this digital media championship. Honestly, if Crazy Steve takes it off Tommy Dreamer, like literally stab him with the fork.
I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with it.
That's
Have
what
it be.
Please
they. Yeah,
force that man to retire.
if
I
they
just
build to that, yeah.
I just thought of it like Crazy Steve can win it off Tommy Dreamer because technically this type of match style and Impact is technically a street fight, says hardcore, so it'll work. But it fits with Crazy Steve's character. Have them both compete in a Monsters Ball for that title.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Listen, it's really gimmicky, but I love the concept of a Monsters Ball that you lock the participants 24 hours in a dark room with no food or water, and then you just pull them out for a match, and there's like the insanity. It's Crazy Steve, for goodness sake. Like, that's in his wheelhouse, but Crazy
You hear
Steve gets.
this?
Yep.
You hear this? Impact Wrestling. You should hire us to do your
Seriously.
programming because
You could
obviously
take
your
our
programmer
ideas, but
sucks.
yeah, you could take our ideas. Just cut me the residual check. Like, we're good. But Crazy Steve gets the digital media championship opportunity. Moose gets. I love this little detail storytelling. Moose gets the world title championship opportunity, so he's back in the main title picture. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I had to giggle though because he was excited. Then he turned to Brian Myers, just like, "Oh, I was really sad I didn't get this tag team title opportunity. Oh no!" I laughed so hard. I was like, this is the most like loosely unified tag team between these two because they're gonna turn on each other when they get a chance.
Yeah,
I'm
because
kind of yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I thought I we had talked about it before, but I thought Moose was gonna get the pink slip. I
That would have
really
been
did.
hilarious if Moose got fired and he just goes on a downward spiral.
Yeah, I really did.
I was contemplating Moose getting it too, only if he was already going somewhere else, similar to
Right.
what I think is happening with who did. But if like Moose got signed to go over to AEW or something like that, like that's what I where I would see that like that's how we're gonna write that to have happened. Um, but when I thought about it, I was like, just with who they have for that world title spot, I figured it might be him.
Chris Bay gets the tag team championships opportunity. And don't get me wrong, I love ABC as a tag team. I mean, Bullet Club, whatever you want to call them. And I talked about this last week. I'm kind of ready to see Chris Bay kind of get pushed into a singles position because he's been in Impact for so long as a tag team wrestler, and the man is so good in the ring. Like, I think he deserves to be some sort of singles champion, whether it be the digital, the X division. Honestly, I would also like to see that world title on Chris Bay at some point. But him and Ace Austin had this tag team championship match, which unfortunately, time to take a moment of silence. The breakup of the tag team known as Joya happened gone way too soon. But Yuya Uemura gets the fired. And I get it because, his excursion technically is over, so he's going to return to Japan. But I'm upset at Impact Wrestling for giving me Joya and then taking away it from me very,
Yes.
very
Oh my
soon.
god. I was so mad. I was so angry because and I will give whoever came up with this Joya thing. I'm going to give them a full credit for sucking me into it because I when it first came on, I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "What in fresh gay hell is this?" And it came out, and then all of a sudden, I was hooked. I was so hooked. It hooked me so quick to the point where I like downloaded their theme song, and it's in my phone. And when he got, and when the tag team one came, and I was like, "Son of a bitch!" I
The
was
music
so
in the background changed immediately, too.
I did. I was so mad. I stopped it. I walked away. I was
You
so
texted me, I officially quit.
I did. I was like, I quit. I was like, I'm done. They broke up my team, man. They
I
broke up
wrote in
my
my
faith.
notes right there, like when they came back, because I had them in two different sections, and the only note I have for the second one, because they had a promo in between the reveals, was "so dumb!" exclamation mark. I was that was my response to seeing that. I could
Yep,
not. I was,
I know.
and
Me
this was a
too.
team I didn't even know about. Like 2 weeks ago, I had been catching up on episodes, and the first time I saw them, I had that same reaction you're talking about, Will. And then watching the next week after that, I had their song stuck in my head walking around the house, and I'm just like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
they got me.
Yep,
Ah,
yep. Telling you, and it was like, and I think and I know that. Okay, I know that he's going back to Japan and all that. And I get that. Don't do that shit. Do not do that shit. Do not create a group that gets me excited, like truly pulls me in, and then just rip the carpet off from underneath me. It makes me it enrages me. I was literally so mad. I was so angry because I was like, I will no longer get to see Julia on screen anymore. I was like, what is this? What? That's literally. I was like, Mike, I quit. That's it. I'm done. I was like,
I was so bad. I was there with Will. I was like, I don't get to hear the "Can I get a Joya?"
Julia.
Listen, Impact Wrestling, you had a mountain of gold with you that you literally took
God,
the
no
meme
kidding.
and you turned it into a tag team name, and it won me over. And
It did. It was great.
the two tag team matches we got at them were actually great as a
They were
team.
so good.
so good.
Now I'm hoping down the line, like Joe Hendry will go to Japan, or like
Yes,
people will
that's what I was
bully
thinking.
Joe Hendry, and then Yuya will come over for a one off and be like, Joya, Joya, and like
Let's
literally
go to Disco.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Like,
And I think he would do really well over there, I think.
I
I
think
mean,
so.
honestly.
But Yuya Uemura, you have done so much. Were such a joy to have it impact the last couple of months. I loved your stuff. You got to be a part of something really, really fun. I'm I'm hoping that you come back soon, or Joe Hendry will come visit you in Japan and you guys will do something. But thank you for making me smile. I'm also interested to see what happens with Joe now that he's on his own again, and whether or not, he's going to go back into a feud with Kenny, or if he's going to move on to something else. But again, Joe Hendry is also a really special talent. Like, he's such a funny character. I forget how strong he is until he proves it in the ring. Like, his stalling brainbusters are like a thing of beauty, just
But
holding
see,
people up.
that's what angers me so much. Is that these two, that Joya was so cheesy. But when you got them in the ring, they kicked ass. I mean, that's what I love. I love the fop story, the sort of like over the fops of the thing. It's like, oh yeah, look at those guys. Look at that. So they're so girly and they're so dancy. It's like, what can they do? And then they like kick your ass. So it's like that's what they can do. And now I'm so mad, and I really do hope that that happens in my heart of hearts, that he'll go to Japan and there'll be Joya again. And
I've got to say they announced it later in the night, but next week is going to be the goodbye.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
gonna cry. I'm gonna
and I'm
cry.
like, they just better lean into this so hard. Both for everyone that I know is having the same reaction for the loss of Joya, but also like that I think will be a bit telling of like where Joe Hendry is going to go from this.
Right.
Um, but yeah, oh god, it's so weird to like for such a short-lived team, for a team that was built the way that they were built to feel this much loss about them breaking
yeah,
up.
I
Um,
know.
yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
There's a tiny little piece of me. I don't think it will happen, but there's like a tiny piece of me that's holding on hope that like Impact is just pulling a big swerve, and like we find out, be like some randomness comes in, be like, that's not the real case. Here's the real one. Like I don't think it's gonna happen, but I gotta prepare my emotions because I listen. Impact goodbye ceremonies. I go to one of two ways. I either cry my eyes out or I laugh my ass off for how ridiculous it is, but like ridiculous in a good way. The last thing I remember somebody got shot at in ring like wedding ceremony of like who shot Johnny Swinger, and
oh
it was it was so
yeah.
ridiculous. And then for like weeks, like I forgot who was doing the investigating, but it's like, did you shoot Johnny Swinger? And it turned out to be Taya Valkyrie, who was written off at the time because she went to NXT. And then she came back and was part of my favorite faction, the Death Dolls. God, I love the Death Dolls. But
Me
anyways,
too.
again, Uramura, I got to prepare my emotions for next week. I'm not ready for this.
no.
And then the emotional whiplash happened because then we get into my match of the night: Trey Miguel versus Josh
Yeah,
Alexander.
this was
Jeez,
so
the sweet dragoon
good.
on a cracker. Like,
This was good. This was really good. And I really like the Rascals, and yet I hate them at the same time. But
Then they're doing their
this,
job.
yeah, they
yep.
are absolutely,
Yeah.
and they did it really well in this
Mhm.
match too, which I thought, they really the characters of the Rascals really shined in this match, which I loved. But God, this was such a good match.
Like literally the
So
first 3-4 minutes of just that sequence of Trey and Josh running in and out of the ring was just like, I was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And again, this might be just me personally. I feel like Trey Miguel doesn't get put in the conversation of like top wrestlers, just period. Trey Miguel can do anything and everything. And he proves it here. I was like, I haven't seen that move in a while. I was like, Trey, you have this in your arsenal and you're waiting until now to pull this. And
He's
it, yep,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say he's got kind of a mixture of a bit of like Ricochet, a bit of AJ Styles, and he puts in some of his own flair. But I think it's that great combination for this match of that power technician versus the high flying striker. Because everything that Josh Alexander hit, Trey Miguel sold perfectly. He was able to execute the other half of it so nicely, and then everything that Trey Miguel threw, Josh Alexander took like beautifully, and I think it showed really just they're two of the top competitors in the company.
And I know Trey and Zachary, like they're currently your tag team champions, which I'm excited to see. I've always been a proponent of I would love to see Trey hold the world title because he's held the X Division a few times, a couple of tag team championships here and there. I would love to see him hold that world title, at some point. But this is a phenomenal match. Trey, again, I like what you said, Andrew. I put him up there with Ricochet in terms of selling. Love it. And even though it's nothing really special, just the way that because of how big Josh is and Trey selling it, the finisher, that C4 spike, I'm like, oh, Trey broke a neck. Trey died. Like, oh my god, that was beautifully done.
Yeah,
yeah, that was
the
it was really good. So go ahead.
the Meteora into the ankle lock, that
Woo!
transition
Oh
was
yeah, that was
clean,
good.
so clean.
again, Josh is one of my favorite wrestlers, period. I put him as my number one male wrestler at the end of last year, like on my list when we all got together and talked about our favorite wrestlers, which I'm excited to do again. Though this one's gonna be chaotic because there's 8 of us who are gonna do 9 of us, I should say, doing this, but it's gonna be fun. So I enjoyed this match. And then we get the promo between Josh and Alex Shelley after this. Now, this is where I have a lot of questions because I said last week that I found it bizarre that way like before this, I know that Alex Shelley and Josh had their problems since emergence because there was miscommunication in their 6-man tag, which resulted in them losing the match. But last week, Alex Shelley came out the gate hard heel against Josh. And I was like, the progression does not add up for me. And like, I felt this one wasn't as bad, but last week's promo, I was like, yo, where did this Alex Shelley like full heel turn come out of nowhere? There's no progression. And I still feel the same way after this one. This one was not as inherently like in your face heel about it, but what happened? Like, where did we go?
You know, this is another one. This is again Impact. God bless them, but they they just don't know how to tell a good story. They just don't. And and this is one of them. It was like, okay, we got little snippets here and there of this, that, and the other, and plus background stuff. Okay, we get what the relationship could become. But then it just sort of happened. Like I was like, wait, where's this coming from? I mean, literally, I was like, whoa, 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 chill your jets, dude. What's your beef? And then it was just sort of like sudden, and I was just, I felt it, because you're right, it was like this beautiful match, and then it was like this, like why on this green earth would you end a wonderful match like that with a very sort of bland, random sort of thing? It's like, see, now I loved it when Shelly came in and spray painted Zachary to get him off the thing. I was like, oh, that was cool. But see, what I was hoping was going to happen, is that uh, then when Shelly came at the end, that he was just going to full on attack him. Like, this is it, man. All this other shit is off to the side. I'm bringing our rivalry back because of this, and this. But we didn't get any of that. It was literally just sort of like, wait, what? So you're a bad guy now? Is that what you're telling? I mean, suddenly you're like, you put on the black hat, and because why? I didn't
Literally
understand.
with a
I didn't
like
understand.
mustache on. And it's
Yeah,
like,
it's like,
bro.
wah ha ha ha. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening again. And Micah, you and I have had this. We've had this experience before, where I'm like, what is happening right now? What am I supposed to get from this? I don't understand what you want me to get from this, because I really didn't. I literally was like, after it happened and it went away, I sat there for like 20 minutes trying to figure out what that was.
It
Yeah,
was weird.
and they can have a phenomenal match against each other, but it does feel like, as someone who's trying to catch up with this, I feel like there was something that I missed. Like, was there an episode, a promo, or something I missed in this? But
Nope.
like, it would make sense if you built up Shelley. Like, Alexander never lost the title. You have people treat him like he's the champion. You have people, root for him, backstage, people praising him and all this stuff. You build up Alex Shelley to, you know, basically start becoming jealous of, like, I'm the champion now, though. I'm defending the title. I'm doing these things, and build to that. But it's like, somewhere along the lines, they needed to make the story shorter, so they cut out a chapter. Um, and it's a shame because, like I said, they're gonna have a great match against each other, but the build up does seem like we got an abridged version of what it could and should have been.
Yeah, and listen, I'm still Well, I mean, we could talk about it now because this we got two at this point of the show. This is where we get two announced matches for Bound for Glory. So first and foremost, we just talked about it: Josh versus Alex Shelley for the Impact World Championship at Bound for Glory. I am excited. I think that is going to be a phenomenal match, but the story threads are very loose. And then out of nowhere, I literally, excuse my French, like I creamed my pants a little bit once they announced the second match we were getting. Will Ospreay versus Speedball Mike Bailey. I'm like, Jesus Christ, my body's not ready for this. Will Ospreay has been killing it since last year for me, and he's been popping up on my radar more and more. And the fact that this man has been this man Will is amazing. Like his work ethic knows no bounds. Like from New Japan to wrestling for AEW, now he's going to be part of not one but two Impact pay-per-views because we did get confirmation that he will be at Turning Point and we'll probably have a match at Turning Point in November, which I'm excited for. But Speedball Mike Bailey versus Will Ospreay is, oh my god, I can't wait. This is gonna be great. Listen, Speedball Mike Bailey just wrestled a blow up doll, and that was amazing. That blow, I still need to watch that full match against Mike Bailey versus that blow up doll. Like that was insane. So once we get that announcement, we get a backstage segment with Mike Bailey and one of my personal favorite professional wrestlers out there, Jonathan Gresham, the Octopus. This one was weird because for a while, Speedball and Jonathan Gresham have been kind of in limbo because they were teamed together, and then they had a feud with a couple people, which didn't really result in anything. And I was like, "Oh, where's Jonathan Gresham on my television screen?" But I am hoping, from what I saw in this promo, if this turns into a heel Jonathan Gresham turn, I am here for it because heel Jonathan Gresham is one of my favorite things
I have
because
a, I
Mike,
have,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a prediction because I don't think Bailey's gonna lose against Gresham next week, going
Mhm.
into the match with Osprey
Yeah,
at Bound for Glory. So I think we'll get a good, solid match between the two of them, especially Gresham being a former pure champion for ROH. I think we'll get that, and then I think at the end, uh, Bailey will pull out a victory, whether it's a quick roll up or something along those lines, and then Gresham turns on him, goes
hmm
heel, and hopefully we get some good push for him because he needs to be doing something.
yeah. I think having Gresham sit on the sidelines is like not great. And I mean, he was your Ring of Honor world champion before he came over to Impact. Like he held the top prize of Ring of Honor, and that whole situation was crazy. I did love the storytelling in this. It was like Jonathan Gresham's like, oh, cool, like me and you are gonna fight again. Like shocker. I was like, oh, he's gonna lose. Well, the thing is, I think he's gonna lose, and then they can swerve. I was just like, but again, I agree with you, Andrew. Now that you brought up the fact you can't have Mike Bailey lose between now and Bound for Glory, especially if he's gonna fight Will Ospreay, who is like the hottest star right now in professional wrestling. God, that match is gonna be great. And then we get another backstage segment that's made me chuckle. So we have the Rascals. And then, they're the Rascals are there with John Schuyler of the Good Hands. And John Schuyler's like, bro, we kept our end of the bargain. It's like, when are we gonna get this match? And Zachary Wentz killed me. He's like, now's not a good time. Throws the coffee at him. John Schuyler picks up coffee cup, gives it back to Zach. Zach throws it again. I love the nuances. And then things kind of get complicated because then ABC walks in with their briefcase. It's like, hey, just letting you know, we can have this championship match any time at the moment. It's like, I hate this for you, Chris Bay. I really do. I really do. I was like, let's push you. I think it's going to be a phenomenal match. Just my question is that where's subculture and all this? Is where I want to know because I was like, they kind of just disappeared after losing their titles. And I don't know if they had a short term deal where they're only there for a couple of matches, but I miss subculture. I want them inserted into this. Then it color me intrigued. But I mean, essentially, ABC and the Rascals dip out, leaving John Schuyler, but they're a poor man by himself in the locker room. He's such a goob, but it worked out for this. This was
I
weird.
I wonder if they're going to build up for the tag title match at Bound for Glory, and I
Uh-huh.
feel like we could potentially get a title change of ABC winning the title from the Rascals and the Good Hands costing the Rascals the title because, as kind of retaliation for like basically them doing what they did for them to them.
Ooh, actually, I'm kind of here for that.
Oh yeah, this is it's funny because yeah, and again, Mikey and I've talked about this in the past. Is that they're building up to something like truly because you don't just drop them in there randomly and blah blah. It's just like this when we're talking about NXT when we're talking about Trick Williams. You know, they're setting him up for something. So it's the same thing here, and I think you're right. You might be right, actually. I think it's very possible that that might be a thing. And I think the good hands are going to cost. They're going. I think they're going to cost the Rascals a win. I really do because they've kind of double crossed them a couple of times, and I'm like, you're going to get your hand bit.
And it's a good way to keep the Rascals still at the top of the tag team division, but dropping the titles. You
Right.
know, it's a good culmination of the story. Who knows if they'll actually go through with that? We'll see if they actually can complete a story in a good way or not. But it's interesting. And as I talked about on the podcast, tag team wrestling is my favorite division of wrestling, and they have a lot of good tag teams that they could, do a lot of good stuff with. It's just they got to build those stories consistently with them. So well, I'm
Right.
looking forward.
So you brought up tag teams. So really quickly, so after this segment, we get the bumpers for next Thursday. And before we get into the main event, I forgot to talk about this. My conspiracy theory, because I was very interested to see what happened, because we got Trey Miguel versus Josh Alexander, but that was not what was originally scheduled. Because when they started announcing everything for the 1,000th episode, they announced that it was going to be Alex Shelley versus Trey Miguel for that championship, and we never got it. I was like, "What happened? Impact? What went down?" Because honestly, I would have wanted to see that match. I'm glad we got Josh versus Trey, but I want to see Trey versus Alex for the title. That would have been crazy. And so I'm like,
Do you,
I wonder why we didn't get it.
do you think something? I wonder if something's come up with Alex Shelley because, like in the conflict last week, he dipped out before too much contact happened. There wasn't any kind of really physical altercation this week. So I wonder if there's something going on that it's like nothing major, but they don't want to have it become something major. And so it'll be interesting as they build to Bound for Glory to see if like he's involved, but not physically involved in things.
Right.
Um, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind because,
Yeah.
it's quite a turn.
Right. And granted, the main event we're going to talk about, we did get this awesome 10 knockout match. My only complaint of the last 2 weeks is I'm kind of disappointed we got no appearance from MK Ultra, Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly, your the
No.
knockouts tag team champions. I was like, y'all didn't put them on
On
the
any of the
last,
teams. I mean, they weren't
like,
anywhere. I know.
no MK Ultra, no Death Dolls, no Coven. Like, none of the women's tag teams were showcased. And I was just like, honestly, okay. So if I'm being honest, I love Awesome Kong to death. I think she is a legend. And of course, you bring her out, and her and Shai are one of my two favorites. Like, she is one of my favorite, like, entourage pieces to wrestlers. But honestly, I would have replaced Awesome with either Killer Kelly or Masha in that, because I think it would have been great. But I still think it was fun. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, no knockouts tag team action at all. And I was honestly like, I love Angelina Love, but I would have loved the Beautiful People versus MK Ultra, or even the Death Dolls versus the Beautiful People. Like, I
I'm
thought
telling you,
that's
Impact is
that was my
horrible at programming.
that was my biggest complaint these last 2 weeks. I was like, no women's tag action, and it is what it is. But now we get to the main event, and I'm going to spill my love for Gail Kim because Homegirl still has it. I love get listen. I will get into it a little bit, but we had the team of Awesome Khan, Gail Kim, a returning Mickey James, who I'm happy to see back on my television screen, Jordan Grace, and your Impact Knockouts champion Trinity taking on the team of Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans, Tasha Steeles, my Puerto Rican badass, Angelina Love, and Deanna Perazzo. God, that is a lot of talent in that. Okay, I want to start by saying Gail Kim. I have said this on multiple occasions, both on the podcast and the review. The blueprint for my women's wrestling for me came from Gail Kim, and she has been out of the ring for the last 4 years because she retired. She still has it. God, my move of the night was when she got into her submission move, and she was like that. She crawled up and she's holding that arm in position and just like not letting go. I'm like spider monkeying all over the place. I'm like, God, Gail Kim still has it.
Yeah, the octopus.
The octopus. I'm like, yes, Gail
Yeah.
Kim,
What
please.
about the springboard arm drag head scissors that she did? I think it was on. Was it on? I can't remember who the two she hit, but she ran up those ropes, jumped off, caught the leg head scissors, and just took them both down. And that was right after she came up short on a crossbody to Deanna
Right.
Perrazzo and hit her on the legs. I was like, oh, I'm a little worried. And then she went up and hit that move right after it, and I was like, all right, all right, all right.
Honestly, for me, Gail Kim was MVP in this entire match. Like, she, again, I wasn't worried for like Giselle and Savannah and, the girls that we're going to see on a weekly basis. But the fact that Gail killed it, I was a little upset. I was like, I want more Trinity. I didn't get to see a lot of Trinity in this match. Will, if you're trying to say something, you're muted.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, my thing likes to mute me sometimes. Um, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense because that Gail was the MVP because this was her fight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's
they
fair.
brought her in. This was her fight, and there was no way she was going to lose this fight. And I agree with you. I wanted more Tiffany because when Tiffany's entrance
Trinity.
happened, I don't know why I keep doing that because there's too
They
many
both start
T's.
with T's.
Jesus Christ. Uh, but when every time she Trinity makes her entrance, it just excites me. I mean, it really does. It gets me excited for whatever's going to happen. And but I agree. We didn't see a lot of her in this match, which again, I figured that this match was going to be all about the veterans anyway. That they were going to get most of the licks in and most of the cool stuff in. I mean, yeah, you had some of the newer folks did, but it was really focusing on a lot of the veterans, which I loved. I loved it. I loved this match. I thought this match was great. Uh, and Awesome Kong was amazing and just frightening. That woman is frightening. I was just like, I wouldn't want to be in the ring with her.
I
And
think just yeah, I think Giselle sold it perfectly when she like backed up into
oh
Kong
my
towards
god,
for
that
the
was a
finish,
beautiful moment.
and she's
Yeah.
like, just take a moment,
Oh
horror
god,
movie status.
no.
She's like, I know she's behind me.
Yeah,
Don't turn around. Don't turn
yeah.
around. She
Let it be
turns around.
anybody except.
And then Awesome Kong hits her for the pin. Just Zell eats the pin in this one for the 1, 2, 3. And then we also end, everybody is celebrating the ring. I also love the fact that Angelina Love and the beautiful people like put the brown paper bag over Jay Vidal,
Save it
which
all.
made me laugh because they're ugly. So you put now what I found interesting was, and I don't know if it was just, camera trick or whatever, but as the show was going off the air and all the women on the winners team were all raising their hands, the camera focused on Mickey James looking at Trinity's title because then it reminded me, I'm like, I forgot Mickey never lost her title because she had to vacate it due to injury. So Mickey versus Trinity, please give it to me.
That I think they did some great jobs at the throwbacks to just the different connections that everybody had, and I think they were really smart on their matchups as people came in and out of it to really highlight everybody. You know, we got that face off with Kong and Evans to remind us, you know, how big Evans is. So you know, that was a great moment. I put down as listed China as like all time women's wrestler, and I think part of that was because she's the one I always think of. But watching this match made me remember how much Gail Kim has done from her WWE days into Impact, TNA, all that stuff. Um, and really seeing her still doing it now and just like realizing how much she actually brought for women's and knockouts wrestling. And I think this match was a great example of like, here are all of the ladies that set these things up, and here are all of the ones that are carrying it on. And I realized at the end when they were all standing together, because they had, what's her name? Allison Lay, the referee. And so it was a ring full of women, you know, ending the show and kind of standing in this kind of victorious position. And so it was really cool to see at the end of a match because we don't get that in a lot of promotions.
No. And I
I
tell and
loved it.
Mikey and I talk about this all the time. I say it, and I'll say it probably till the day I die, that a lot of these women's matches outdo a lot of the men's matches, and I do not understand why there's still this sexism in this sport. And the other thing that irritates me is I guarantee you that one of these matches would sell out. If you did an all women's night, like it was like whatever, all women's wrestling all night long, it would sell out. So start giving these women their due, man. Because you got I mean, Impact has some real, and all of them do. They all have amazing women talent, and they don't utilize it enough. Now, I will say, I think NXT is pretty good about it, and I think Impact is starting to realize something, because we have kind of started to see more women stuff sort of mixed in to the rest of it. So maybe they're catching on. But man, some of these women, some
The
of these
pops they
women.
were getting in this match
Yeah.
when people made their entrances, people hit their moves. Gail Kim doing that splash off the top turnbuckle to the outside, hitting everybody. I mean, there were just some huge moments, and the character work that so many of them are doing. Like, what is it? Evans, Shaw, and Vidal. Like that little trio there of them. Like what they do as characters. Like
Oh, yeah.
every one of them is doing really great work. And you know, you want to compare it to the multi people matches. You look at the 8-man match that happened earlier in the night versus this 10, you know, knockouts match
Way
that
better.
happened.
Way
Oh,
better.
hands above, just above what quality was right there, you know. And you had people from all the same generations. So I was so happy that this was the main event, and they gave it the time that it needed, and they used that time really well.
Yeah. One of my favorite matches, and this is going into NXT, but one of my favorites is the Tiffany and Becky Lynch fight. I mean, Jesus Christ! You want to talk about two women who are trying to kill each other?
And aren't they having a hardcore rematch?
Yes, they're having an Extreme Rules match at No Mercy.
Super excited!
If that
Yeah.
doesn't main event No Mercy, I don't know what is.
Oh my
Honestly.
god, I know, right? So
I
speaking
mean,
of this was a good main event. I thought for
yeah,
Impact, I thought this was a spot on, fantastic main event.
especially for ending the celebration of the 1,000th show. You know, it was all of these their legends, you know, going in there. And the nice thing was it didn't feel like the legends were trying to outshine the current talent. It felt like they were all working together. You know, there wasn't really any dissension on either side. It was really about going out there and having a great match. The only part that kind of concerned me, and I know this is probably just a collection of injuries and age, but at the very end, Kong seemed to be struggling. Um, right at the very end, and they came. And I think part of it was because a couple of people like Gail Kim and Mickey James came in to check on her. But then they all got up, and they celebrated and everything. But I think they put this match together very well. I think this was the pinnacle of their planning for these
Yeah,
events.
I agree. I thought this was a really great ending for the 1,000th episode.
Oh, for sure. And since we're at the end, I think it's only fair that we do our final rating. So, as we have come to be accustomed here to the Viconics, boys, you could choose your rating scale. We can choose the mini scale, which has been originated from SmackDown. So, Mini, aka Evan, one of our co hosts, uses heads as a rating scale. Or we take Luis's rating scale and we just put it out of 5 empanadas. Or what has canonically, thanks to Ring of Honor, thanks a lot, guys. The we can do a Dynamite and Ring of Honor where we combine the two and mini rated out of mini empanada scale. I'm gonna use the regular empanada scale, so I will admit this was a lot. This part two was a lot better than part one for me, though I'm gonna give it like a solid 2.8 out of 5 empanadas. Again, I don't think anything inherently was wrong, but I just had a lot of bummer moments. Obviously, Joya knocked a lot of the score down.
Mm,
I mean, that's petty of me. Not really, because that one was a bummer. The Ultimate X match also was kind of a bummer because it didn't live up to my expectations of what I know an Ultimate X match can. And I still have a lot of questions of how we got from point A to point B in this match between Josh and Alex Shelley for this title at Bound for Glory. Like, I know we had some issues at Emergence, but literally, you had Alex and Chris, like, literally. And then I'm wondering too, I was like, how is Chris Sabin going to react to Alex Shelley kind of being a douche nozzle? Because Chris Sabin is still face right now. He
hmm
went up against Leo Rush, who is like the consummate little heel shit that he is last week. And I noticed that everyone except for Alex came out to celebrate Chris Sabin's historic 10th win as X Division champion. So I'm interested to see how that comes into play. But ultimately, the women's main event was great. Trey versus Josh is still my match of the night. That was fantastic. And again, just as a whole, this was a lot better than part one. Just a lot of things, but yeah, 2.8 empanadas out of 5 for me.
2.8.
Like it's like 2 whole empanadas, and somebody took a little nibble out of the third one, so it's 2.8.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay. All right. 2.8 empanadas. Okay. Well, I guess I'll go next. I this yes, this one was way better than the first one, and I think that this one had far more successes than the first one did when it comes to like individual matches. Yes, the my match of the night was of course Josh Alexander's match with Trey, and um but I will have to say though that I to me the the main event was pretty close. It was pretty close. They were kind of even for me, and then I went with my baseness, which is Josh Alexander is a hottie, and I went with that Matt, and Trey's pretty cute too, but Josh is like my man. Um, but that was a stellar fight. Their fight was super stellar. So yes, so I would probably, and then and of course me, I'm so harsh on Impact. It's not even funny because I just don't know how to tell a damn story right. And so I'm probably going to give this probably a 2 out of 5. And it's just because I mean shit came out of nowhere and it didn't make any sense at times, and it was just like I don't it felt rushed, it felt thrown together at times. It literally like duct tape in a dream was holding it together. And I was just like I was a little disappointed in that because I was super disappointed last time, and then I got sort of we got that first match, and I was kind of like, oh god, here we go again. And then it started going uphill, and then it took a weird turn, and then we got good stuff again. So I don't know. Yeah, and of course, yeah. So I'm going to say it's a solid 2 out of 5. And then I might can I do my hot corner picks for the night, or do you want to do that later, or what do you want to
Let's get through Andrew's rating first, and then we'll
do? Okay,
end with the hotness corner before
got
we
it.
end. Oh, Andrew, we're subjecting you to all sorts of things.
Oh, it's all good. I'm here for it. I wasn't here for last week's, but I did watch the show. I think last week's I would have probably, being generous, given it a 5 out of 10. I like the out of 10 scale. It gives me a little more variety. But I would have probably given it somewhere around there, middle ground, maybe 4 to 5, somewhere around there. With that in mind, I think the end of this card with what we would call, I guess, the co-main event between um, uh, um, Alexander and Miguel, and then the main event with a 10 knockouts tag match. Really, like, if you were going to have a card and you were going to stack it in a way to really leave a good impression, to leave a good impact. Um, I think putting those two at the end was a smart choice. It left me feeling, no matter how I felt at the beginning of it, at the end, I felt really good. I felt really happy. I was entertained. So I think I would give this a 7. There were some challenges, but I think the challenges that they dealt with in this card were trying to clean up from things that came before it, and make the best of those situations. I do think there were some things that they made some less than wise choices. I didn't even think about the fact that the Knockouts tag team title wasn't even in there. I would have much rather have seen something with those folks instead of the 8-man tag that we got. Some more story development, but I think I would give this a solid 7 out of 10. Um, like I said, I ended happy on it. When I look back at it, I think of those two matches specifically. I think we got some good showings from folks like Jake something. Um, got some good setups for Bound for Glory. Here's hoping that they do some more of that going forward. But yeah, I feel like it improved a decent amount from last week. And if you're gonna have all of this happen, I would rather have it go out like it did, if even if it had to start the way that it kind of did. So, yep, that's my vote for this week.
Love it. And before we do our outros, we here at the Biconics, especially for NXT and Impact, we have the Hotness Corner where we have our resident newbie, Will, tell us the hotness corner of who the hottest male and female was and explain why. So, Will, who are your picks for this episode of Impact Wrestling?
Okay, so the women was easy, and that was Miss Gail Kim, because she is classy. She is truly the epitome of what wrestling should be. I mean, full on. She is courteous, she's kind, but she'll hold her ground when she needs to, and she's just classy. She was standing in the ring like in the first episode or the first half of this thousandth anniversary type thing. She just looks so statuesque. It was just like, God, look how beautiful she is. Just the way she stands there, and she just exudes this amazing energy in the room. I mean, so she's my pick for the ladies. The men was a little harder this time because it was between two, and you know who they are. So, and I'm just like, who do I pick? So I went with Jake something because one, I'm very much like into like darker haired men. So it was all by technicality. He won by technicality, truly. But yeah, so Jake something is my men's pick for the evening, and Gail Kim was my women's pick for the evening. So there they are. You're welcome,
I
world.
love it. I love it. Thank you, Will. And unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of another fun episode of Table for Two plus you for Impact Wrestling. But fear not, because when we come back next week, we are pretty much now beginning the road to Bound for Glory because we have like 5 or 6 weeks until that pay per view for Impact, which is nice. So we have a breather to build up whatever matches we're getting. We already got two of them, and those are exciting. If you like what we do here at the Biconics Wrestling YouTube channel, if you like this review, you could check out other Table for Two reviews, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff we got going on. Make sure to hit the bell notification, hit that subscribe button, share the videos. You can follow all of us on the social medias at BC WrestleProd, where pretty much we let you know when these videos are live, as well as the shenanigans that go behind the scenes. We're on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, like just the works. And if you think this was unhinged, you should hear us on the actual podcast because we go in on so many other things. The most recent episode saw us list our favorite wrestlers outside of AEW, some of our favorite matches, but the majority of the time we went into the conspiracy corner about this WWE UFC merger. It was a hoot. And stay tuned tomorrow because I'm about to go off on SmackDown because a lot of things happened this week in the world of WWE, and you can see me and the professor cover that. And then you can also see me and breaking news of returning Adolfo review the special 2 hour Rampage because a lot of things happened over there on Rampage. But that is going to be it for the Table for Two crew. Will and Andrew, I am so excited moving forward to have this trio review Impact Wrestling. It's going to be a lot of fun. And until the next review, to all of you, thank you for watching. And until then, take care of yourself, one another. And as always, keep it biconic. We'll see you later.